So thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to go ahead and get started with a little introduction for me. My name is Craig again, and I'm a software engineer that focuses on security for the OpenSearch project. And so I'm a maintainer of a few different repositories in the OpenSearch project that pertain to security and some not pertaining to security. And that's the security plugin, the security dashboards plugin, and job scheduler. And my background, I went to school for electrical engineering, but I've been a software engineer for around the last 10 years. And I really wish back when I was in school that I had a program similar to this, where when I was in school, I was really interested in contributing to projects. And I was looking for research and looking for cool projects on campus, and unfortunately didn't quite find the best fit for me. And I really wish I had a program like this where there's mentorship provided from engineers in an organization such as AWS to collaborate with and work with and contribute to a big, widely used project. And so I want to thank you all again, congratulate you for being admitted into the program, and I look forward to working with you over the next couple of weeks. And Josh?
Yeah, hi, I'm Josh Romero. I'm a maintainer of a couple of the repositories in the project, OpenSearch dashboards and the OpenSearch UI library. I am a front-end engineer at Amazon, and I'm based in Seattle. My previous career was as a technology journalist. I got really into building interactive data visualizations on the web, and that's kind of what took me to software development career. And now I'm really excited to work on OpenSearch dashboards, where I get to help build a visualization tool set. Yeah, I helped organize the pilot program we did. This is the first real version of this program, but we did a pilot program earlier. And I'm so excited to be an organizer and mentor here, really just for the opportunity to meet so many developers from around the world. Even looking at the Slack channel earlier, we have people from so many places in the world, different schools, coding boot camps, and bringing all of that talent and experience together in one project is what I love about open source, and also why I'm really excited for this program, because the way to really kind of build a software that grows quickly, that is adaptable and moves fast, is to really build a community around it. And that's what I'm really excited to do here on this program. So welcome, congratulations for being selected, and can't wait to get to know as many of you as possible.
And I did want to briefly introduce the other two faces on this slide who unfortunately can't be here with us this evening, my time at least. I'm located in Boston. The first there on the left is David Tippett. He's a developer evangelist with the OpenSearch project, and you're going to be seeing his face a lot. He runs the community meetings for OpenSearch, so if you ever attend one of those community meetings, you'll be interacting with David there. You'll see he has a really nice sort of vlogger setup that has an OpenSearch theme background that's really interesting. And I know a lot of you have been emailed by Iskander with the setup there, Iskander on the right. He's going to be your primary point of contact for the program. He unfortunately can't be here tonight as well, but he's the primary form of contact. You should have his email address, and you again, I know some of you have already set the Slack channel. We're going to go over that again momentarily. That's another channel that we're going to be using to communicate in this program as well. You see our GitHub handles on there as well. And I did want to briefly give Ashwin a chance to introduce himself if he's around. If not, we can move on to the next slide. But I didn't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, sorry, I wasn't prepared for this, but hey guys, hi, I'm Ashwin. You'll be seeing me tomorrow for some of the workshop that we're doing. But just to introduce myself, I am a front-end developer at OpenSearch 2. I work with Josh closely on OpenSearch dashboards and the UI library, and also some functional testing libraries as well. So yeah, hope to see you guys around. I'll have a more prepared introduction tomorrow for you guys, but that's for now.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you for jumping on camera too. All right. Both of you want to tell you just a little bit about the program. Again, congratulations. There were a lot of applicants, and unfortunately there aren't enough mentors to facilitate just everyone. So we ended up, you're one of the top 4% selected into the program. And there's really contributors from around the world and from all different backgrounds, not just necessarily from college or coding boot camp, but from, if you're eager to participate in a program like this, to engage with engineers at AWS and contribute to an open source project, then this is the right program for you. There are participants from all continents except for Antarctica, I believe. So maybe we'll get one next time, but it's really goes to show you how diverse of a program it is. And so it's really an interesting experience getting to engage with people around the world. This is a unique kind of program where you get to collaborate directly with engineers at AWS, and not just engineers at AWS, but engineers within the OpenSearch community. It's a community, it's an open source project. And so you might see the AWS engineers around a lot, but you might be engaging with people more broadly who are just interested in engaging with the OpenSearch community. There are repositories available in many different areas, programming languages, subject matter areas like machine learning, security. If you're more interested in analytics and visualization front end, or if you're more interested in distributed system, high performance computing, search relevancy, there is a repository that will fit your interests. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how we're going to be matching you with mentors for the upcoming weeks to try to align you to where you're interested most. So just some overview of the program. It's a 10-week program starting today, going into November 29th. But with open source, you're free to contribute anytime as well. So we hope to see you in the future as well. We just hope you're a member of the OpenSearch community. There are 240 participants in the program in total. And Josh, I don't know if you wanted to add anything here.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of add on to what Craig said, really congratulations, because there was a lot of demand for this program. You were selected to be here. We're so glad you could make it here, and we really look forward to working with you. You may have seen the blog post about the program. The idea of the balloons here is we want to kind of give you that initial lift up into the sky, make it so if you've never contributed to an open source project, that will no longer be true. You'll say, yes, I've contributed to a very big open source project that it has millions of downloads and thousands of users all over the world. But also that you'll be have more experience and comfort and confidence in tackling other open source projects in the future, or other big legacy code bases that you encounter in your career. And the other thing to say is that this program is very open-ended, and there's a very high correlation between what you put into it and what you're going to get out of it. So I think when Iskander gave this slide before, the idea here is as the balloon, we're going to try to give you that initial thrust to get you up in the atmosphere, but then kind of where you go from there, you have to kind of supply the wind power that actually carries you across the landscape. So if that seems confusing, don't worry, we'll get the more concrete stuff later. But just want to kind of say, one, we're really excited to have you. Two, the more that you can put into it, definitely the more you'll get out of it. And the same goes for the mentors and for all of us involved.
All right, so first I'd like to talk about what we're going to be covering in today's session, and then what you can expect for the rest of the first week, and then for the upcoming 10 weeks as well. So for the next slide, we'll talk about what you can expect over the next 10 weeks. Then I want to talk to you a little bit about what open source is and why it's an interesting and a good model of software development. Then we're going to talk about why you're here and what is OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards. If some of you may be familiar, some of you may not. And so want to just go through at a high level what this people use the tool OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards for and common use cases. And then we're going to talk about some high impact projects that we asked mentors in the program to identify that will deliver high impact to the organization, and you can form teams to work on the projects over the coming weeks. And we'll talk more in another slide about what some of those projects are that have been identified, and talk in the weeks ahead what you can expect there. So here's a little bit of a timeline. This is the week 1 program. Today is sort of an overview and welcome of the session. And again, welcome everybody to the open source contributor program. Tomorrow, Ashwin has a great session prepared for you on using Git with an open source project. And it's a nice workshop where you get to fork an open source repository, clone the repository, make a change, push a change, and then make a pull request, all in that session. So I do ask, if you do not have a GitHub account already, please create one and also install Git. Be doing reminders throughout today's session on that. But to be prepared for tomorrow, please make sure you already have a GitHub account. And not only do you have a GitHub account, but install Git on your computer as well. Those are 2 separate things. So create the GitHub account, install Git. It'll help you tremendously contributing to an open source project. GitHub is one of the primary places that open source code lives. On day 3, we have another workshop prepared to really help you get bootstrap and get ready for development as quickly as possible. And David, who you saw on the second slide there, is going to be leading that workshop. And there you'll be setting up development environment for OpenSearch and for OpenSearch dashboards. Those are 2 of the core repositories in the project that'll help you contribute to any of the repositories in the OpenSearch project organization. From weeks 2 to 3, there's going to be you're going to be filling out a survey, and please fill that out by Sunday. The link will be provided, I believe, in Slack and over email, where we're going to help try to match you to mentors in your areas of interest. And so starting on week 2, you'll be meeting with your mentors in office hour sessions, where you'll be talking through issues that you'd like to work on. And if you encounter any issues with those issues, with what you've identified, you can talk with your mentor to work through those and work towards your first contribution. And third, with that, is identifying some of those good first issues to work on to start developing and testing and to start making your first contribution to a repository in the OpenSearch project. From weeks 4 to 9, there's sort of 2 tracks there. One of which I identified earlier was that the high impact projects, where you can work in a team on one of 15 projects that has been identified to contribute there, or you can choose to work on just more complex issues and sort of be a sole contributor there, but working on more and more complex issues with your mentor as the weeks progress. On the last week of the program, week 10, if there's anything open, such as open pull requests, we're going to try to drive all of those to completion there. So that's sort of what you can expect there on through the timeline of the program. So again, on the first week, welcome. There's going to be some talk of logistics here, just setting up a Slack account, writing an introductory message. If you do not have a GitHub account already, please create one. On day 2, there's the workshop where you'll be using Git to make your first contribution to OpenSearch. And then on day 3, a development setup of 2 of the core repositories, OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards, to set you up for contributions with your mentors in the weeks to come. Josh, did you want to add anything at all? Oh, Josh, are you on mute?
Yes, I am. No, I think that covers the first 3 days. So the only thing just to otherwise mention is we do have a lot of people that are like really disappointed about being on the waiting list and waiting to join. So if for some reason, especially in these first 3 days, your plans have changed, you're not able to commit to the program, you've decided that other things have to take precedence first, please let Iskander know so that we can provide the spot to someone else. So we will be kind of, for each of these days, there'll be tasks to complete. we'll be making sure everyone kind of completes them and is ready to move forward so that we can kind of get as many participants into the program as possible.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that there, Josh. And here's some of the information on how to create a Slack account. I believe it's posted in the chat. Josh, did you post that to create a Slack account, and then which channel to join as well? The OSCI 2023.
Yeah, and also if I will repost I also made just a new invite for folks that were that were not able to join. So continue to if like while we're on the call today, if you are trying to join and have a problem, definitely let me know, and we'll try and get that resolved today. If not, follow up via email, and we'll want to make sure that you're in there. So yeah, this has all the info. I just posted again like an actual invite that should work for everyone if you've had problems. But if you do still have problems, let us know in the Zoom chat.
And to reiterate again, in addition to the Slack account, make sure you also have a GitHub account to make sure you're ready there for the workshop tomorrow from Ashwin. And once you're joined the channel is OSCI 2023. Please introduce yourself this is a very collaborative program. As I said, there's going to be some team formation, but you're also for those high impact projects, but open source software is all about collaboration, not just collaborating with the mentors and collaborating with the maintainers of the repo, but collaborating with your colleagues, collaborating with other people in the OpenSearch community. And open source is all about collaboration. The contributions can come from anyone. And so it's a really interesting way of doing software development where you end up talking to people from other organizations who have their own priorities, from people who are eager to make a contribution and trying to just learn different types of software, and the collaboration and working through problems. It's a really interesting way of working together. And so Slack is going to be our primary mode of communication, but also GitHub on various issues as well. So I want to talk a little bit about what open source is. Well, on here you see some primary examples of various different popular open source repositories. Some of you may be familiar with them. I think Linux is one of the big ones there, where the kernel is open for the public to view. But there's some other very popular projects. React, if there's any front-end engineers, a very, very popular component framework for doing front-end development. Kubernetes, a very popular container orchestration framework that's used to deploy some very big production workloads. Node.js, writing JavaScript as a server. All of these are open source, and you can go and look into the code base, make a contribution, engage with the community. If you find a bug, you're free to go there and contribute to those projects as well. For those that are interested in machine learning, TensorFlow, these are just a couple of picked examples, but open source is really it's a way to open up the software for anybody to contribute to. It's free to modify. There are different licenses out there, and you'll see the OpenSearch project is an Apache version 2 license. But generally speaking, open source software is free to view, public, and modify and distribute as you see fit. And so it's a really interesting where you can see the code, and you're free if you want to contribute a new feature or if there's a defect that you'd like to solve, you are free and empowered to do so. In fact, when I joined the OpenSearch organization, one of the first tasks that I had to do, that I worked on, was reading private keys in a different format that wasn't supported in OpenSearch. But to accomplish that task, I didn't actually contribute to OpenSearch. I contributed to one of the dependent libraries that OpenSearch uses called Netty, another open source project. And I worked with the maintainers over there to iterate through, to figure out what the problem was, to first come up with a pull request. It wasn't ready just on the initial pull request, so it took a couple of days and back and forth with the maintainers to make sure the code was ready to be accepted and merged into the Netty code base. Once it was contributed to, it wasn't exactly bug-free. I saw in the coming days a couple issues filed from different users of that code base as well, from various different companies like Apple and Netflix. And it was really interesting to see how I introduced a bug into a code base that another engineer went and solved. And it was, a feature that was beneficial to us, introduced a bug, but then that was fixed by another member of the community. And so just by sort of distributing it and having it open for anybody to contribute, it made the software more flexible and more robust for everybody to use. And Josh, I don't know if you wanted to give a little anecdote on your open source experience there as well.
No, I think that anecdote is perfect in a lot of ways. I think the other thing that for me is so important about the open source software is the pace of learning and innovation is so much faster, right? Instead of just a few people constantly solving the same problems in similar but slightly different ways, open source software is a place where everyone can contribute to kind of like one thing and make it better. And so the way that projects build on top of each other and like some of these examples here, OpenSearch dashboards is built on top of so many other open source projects, which are themselves built on other open source projects. And without that ecosystem, to do something like this, like no company could even afford to do it because it's too complex and there's too much that would have to be done from scratch. So I think it is a part of being like in the software world is like, and being a part of like where to me the true innovation really happens, because everything else is kind of subject to the market and whims and whether companies or products are successful or not. But the open source stuff actually lasts and endures.
Yeah, and like you said, velocity. In my experience, open source projects move fast and really innovate rapidly and become flexible and used in ways you wouldn't expect as well.
Cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, Craig just did a great intro of like open source in general. And so I want to talk a little bit about why contribute to open source, but specifically why participate in this program. So a lot of you are early in your software development careers, and part of why I suspect that you joined this program is some sense of the fact that open source contributions are an incredibly important hiring differentiator. And I want to emphasize this, especially when companies are having to interview and balance and consider different applicants, especially earlier in their career. A lot of applicants on paper or even an interview look kind of similar, right? There's not a lot of experience there to differentiate. It's hard to know, how some of those academic skills will translate to actual day-to-day teams or products or things like that. Open source contributions are basically a way to like have that experience and be able to point to real software accomplishments, and so they're like a huge a signal when evaluating candidates. In addition, there's kind of another important thing with open source contributions and hiring, which is that open source is kind of a funny thing in that it is incredibly accessible. There are so many open source projects. All you have to kind of do is introduce yourself, show up, and you can start contributing and start having impact, which is great. But on the other hand, they're also really intimidating. And if you've never done it before, most people don't take that first step. And I would say, like myself included, when I was getting started with software development, it's really intimidating when you don't know anyone and you've never done it before to approach a project or even know where to get started. And so because most developers don't actually take that step, it really shows kind of additional level of commitment and effort to go out and contribute to open source, and spend your time and contribute your time in investing in your professional growth, on your own, kind of like outside of an academic setting. So it is a huge win. Our goal with this program is to give you experience and projects and issues that you can talk about when you're in interviews, or that you can put on your resume and say, yeah, I did this. I had this. This is the impact I had for the users of a project that has millions of downloads. And this is how I was able to do that. There are also some other outcomes at the end. So you'll be, as Craig mentioned, working closely with a mentor. There'll be about 5 participants per mentor. You'll be able to chat with them in office hours. You'll be communicating with them via GitHub. Based on all the work that you do in the 10 weeks, you'll put together a summary of your contributions, and the mentor will evaluate it to determine whether or not it qualifies for a letter of recommendation from an AWS principal engineer. And then there's also a certificate of completion that's more basic, just based on getting at least 5 pull requests merged into the code base. So those are both great outcomes. It's awesome to have a letter, and it's also great to have a certificate. But I just wanted to emphasize more important than any of those is really what you put into it, and how we like help each other, and the people you meet here. So it's not just that you're working with an AWS mentor, but you're also working with a lot of people that may be your future hiring managers, or they may be a future peer who recommends to bring you onto the team they're on. Or I don't know, maybe there's like co-founders that meet here and go on to do something else. So it's also just an awesome place, awesome way to meet and connect with a lot of people in a place where we're all trying to kind of work toward the same goal. So obviously, I mentioned you'll be applying your knowledge from school to a widely used software project. There's also one of the things that's really cool to me about the program is like it also gives you a real sense of what it's like to work on a large scale software project and collaborate with lots of people. So there's a lot of key experiences and abilities that go into being a software developer beyond technical skills. So how do you communicate effectively with your users, with your stakeholders, with your teammates across time zones and anywhere they may be in the world? How do you take a vague feature request or bug or product description and then actually turn it into a solution that you can build? These are all super important, and you'll get to do all that here. Sometimes it will kind of feel like things are messy and not like really strictly defined, and that's because that's actually what like Craig and my day-to-day experience is like. You know, we get given projects that no one has really figured out what they're supposed to do, and that's up for us to figure out. So you'll get to experience that right along with us. You'll get to kind of like do all that, and so that will also give you a huge advantage in kind of knowing you know what you're looking for in future teams that you work on. Yeah, so again, I just mentioned the other huge thing is to just being able to collaborate with each other is the biggest thing I think we'll all learn from each other. I review a lot of pull requests, and one of the things I often tell people is that like part of why I enjoy reviewing so much pull requests is that's how I learn. I'm sure I will learn new tips and tricks, especially with front-end technology, reviewing your pull requests. So the learning opportunity really comes from each other in our interactions.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. And sorry.
Go ahead.
You will face ambiguous problems in your career as a software engineer. I can guarantee that. And some of the times it's really challenging, and persisting through a challenge, in my experience, is how I really have built deeper and deeper levels of understanding. So I encourage you all, if you encounter a challenge, do reach out for help. Like we're a community, we're here to help. If you really feel stuck, you know, ask questions. Even if you don't necessarily know how to formulate a question, just try to come up with, you know, try to show where your head is at, and somebody out there can really help to guide and build deeper levels of understanding when solving an issue. But it's almost guaranteed you'll come across ambiguous problems in your career. Should I move forward, Josh?
Yeah. Let me go to the next slide. So we've already mentioned some of this stuff, but just overall, want to kind of like make sure everyone's expectations are set correctly. So everyone will be assigned to a mentor for the 10-week program. This will be based on the survey that your programming languages of interest, your topics of interest, and we're also we'll spread people out as best as we can. So you may not get your first choice repository or project or your first choice language, but we have a wide variety of projects and repos, and hopefully, even if it's not your first choice, you maybe will find a new area of interest or new area of expertise that you can build. So everyone will be assigned a mentor. Again, the due date for the survey, it will be the end of day Sunday. So you have a few days still to check things out. Over the next couple of days, we'll also provide more resources about how to start learning about the different repositories and pieces of the project. Once you have assigned a mentor, that mentor will host hour-long office hours once a week. We know that people are in many different time zones all over the world. When we post the list of repositories, we'll also post the kind of planned office hour times. So you will also hopefully be able to kind of choose projects where also attending office hours is possible. Because we know that in-person, well, digitally in-person interaction is really important. We want to make sure that you can make the office hours time for the repo you're in, which can be challenging because we are all over the world. But that'll be like the main kind of way you'll connect with the mentor. And so it's really important to find a time that works that you can do that. And then we expect 5 to 10 hours per week of development, correspondence, time to review each other's code. But that's kind of, again, that's probably, I would say 5 hours a week would be like the minimum you would need to get something really valuable out of it. If you have more time or capacity, the more you put in, really, I think the more you'll get out. And so like, this is definitely not an upper bound. It's more kind of like the expectations of what you need to be able to be successful and hit the number of PRs you need to get the certificate. But the more you put in, the more you get out. And so you might also be asking, like, well, when mentors are evaluating whether I get a letter of recommendation or my overall performance, what do they take into consideration? And I can't stress this enough. It's not just about the code that you write and what you deliver. Our real goal is to succeed together. So we want to grow the community. We want everyone here to achieve success. And so helping each other, this is not a competition. There's no like quota on the number of recommendation letters that will get written or the number of certificates that are given out. So you're not competing with each other. What we really want you to do is help each other. So if you're a seasoned pro with Git and doing pull PR reviews, make sure to help other people in your group who maybe have never done that before. And that is something that we absolutely will include in the summaries and will be taken into consideration. So for example, when we did the pilot of this, we had someone who spent a lot of time simply answering other participants' questions in the forum and helping people get started and over those yak-shaving hurdles of a development environment setup. And that was absolutely a huge bonus. Like that time to help others or open issues. So you find a bug and you take the time to document it and write it up, or adding documentation that's missing. There's basically no wasted effort in open source. Everything is, we need your help on all parts of it, even including like making this program a success. So if you have ideas about like how the Slack channel could be better or things like that, and you have suggestions and put time in, that absolutely all counts. So everything counts. Helping each other counts a lot, and that's kind of the main message I want to get across. And then finally, the other thing is like the long-term benefits are, again, those connections that you make. So again, this I think one of the biggest takeaways will be being able to meet and work with people that are new, that you're solving common challenges and problems together. And so really embrace that, because at the end of the day, that's really what drives your career forward, is people who know what you're capable of, how you work in a team, that you're fun to work with. Like, all that really matters when building a career in software. So yeah, at the end, the summarized contributions will be assessed by your mentor, and that'll be kind of the end of the program. The other thing, as Craig mentioned earlier, if you want to continue contributing beyond the 10 weeks, awesome. We'd love to have you. So you can also, as the program wraps up, think about like if OpenSearch is a project you still want to be involved in. We'd love to have your continued help. Maybe you want to help mentor in a future session. There's so many, I think, other additional opportunities. The sky is kind of the limit. And I also would say expect the unexpected. So when we did the pilot, I would have never expected that some of our participants actually did enough contribution work to be nominated and join as project maintainers. So we have at least 4 maintainers that basically came out of a program like this. So that's not something that is necessarily like something to shoot for or that everyone can achieve, but I think there are going to be outcomes that even we can't imagine. And then finally, what to expect from your mentor. Everyone is doing this because they believe in this program. They believe in helping the next generation of software developers, but they also have lots of other responsibilities and roles. So be patient with your mentors. Sometimes, as Craig mentioned, things are not maybe as organized or as clear as you would like them to be. So when you can, help make it better, help figure out where you can lend a hand to kind of like make things easier for mentors. And on that note, one thing I will mention is a lot of mentors, the OpenSearch conference is next week. So next week will be the first week of the program. You'll be really excited to meet your mentors and start on projects, but also be aware that many mentors have other responsibilities like at the conference. And so again, be patient with us. You can always reach out to Craig or I or the other organizers on Slack as well, and we can help you. But everyone will be working toward the same goal. Cool. And then finally, I kind of want to just talk a little bit about the second half of the program. So in the first couple of weeks, you'll be meeting the mentors. You'll be getting familiar with the code base that you're working in. You'll start understanding, what issues are talking about, how that maps to code, how those issues can be fixed. And then once you have a sense of the repository you're working in, there's kind of 2 paths. One is if you want to just keep finding issues or feature requests or user needs and kind of keep tackling ever more complex issues, that's totally fine. You can basically just kind of keep doing what you've been doing in the first couple of weeks, but just move on to more challenging or more complex issues. But we also have another path, which is the opportunity to work on these high impact projects. So these are projects that have been identified by the repo mentors as something that would really benefit users if it got done. These are going to be challenging and complex. So they're going to be worked on by teams of 4 to 5 because it'll take that many of you to overcome the challenges. And ideally, some of these, if they completed it in time, they may even get mentioned in the reInvent program notes. So reInvent is a big AWS conference. It's held every year, which would be really cool. We'd be really excited. I think it'd be really exciting for you guys as well. So these high impact projects, one benefit is like it gives you a full project to be able to talk about on a resume or in an interview, where you'll go from kind of understanding the problem, collaboratively designing a solution, implementing it, testing, verifying it, and then even a taste of like what is it like to actually release that in a production release. So there'll be a lot more info about these high impact projects that you'll go. You'll also like work directly on your mentor about this, but just keep this in mind as one of the 2 kind of potential paths for the second half of the program is either continue to just work on individual issues of increasing complexity or tackling one of these big team projects. And both are, neither one is like more valuable or better than the other. Both we really appreciate and value. It's more dependent on like the mentor you're working with in the repo and your progress in the program so far.
And for those high impact projects, this is just a sample of a couple of ones, a little descriptor. we'll be passing out a list next week with more information about each of these in detail. But these are across all of the different code bases there as well. And so you see such examples in here. Some of these are more machine learning oriented. Some are more maybe software engineering front end oriented or back end oriented, if I had to categorize. But you see things in there like first class support for more webhooks, enhancing the OpenSearch build system, OpenSearch language clients enhancements. We're going to be talking about that in just a second. We have clients available in all of the major programming languages. Index management, index transform, schedule start time, alerting API enhancements. These are just some descriptions. We'll be getting more information to you shortly. And so I wanted to talk about OpenSearch, because we've been talking about open source in the program this whole time. Well, this is the open source contributor program for the OpenSearch organization. So what is OpenSearch and why do people use OpenSearch? Well, OpenSearch, it's a distributed search engine. And what do I mean by distributed? I mean, you have data stored in nodes of a cluster, and each node you can think of as sort of one computer. So it's all of these nodes are working together in a cluster. You can store data in this distributed fashion. It's built on top of something called Apache Lucene, but what that really means is that it gives it popular search capabilities. So a lot of us might like e-commerce, where you go on a website, search for products. A lot of search experiences are powered by technologies such as OpenSearch, where you want to provide that really based on sort of a search query, giving the most relevant search results. And that's only one such use case, a common use case, reading through sort of, let's say, such that e-commerce use case, product descriptions, reviews, other metadata associated with it. It provides a really rich search capability to give the most relevant results. But search, it is really powerful for search. And another very common use case is log analytics. And what does that mean necessarily, log analytics? Well, applications that you use or that companies host generate a lot of events. I log in, user clicks here, user buys this. It generates lots of events. A lot of those events get shipped to a system like OpenSearch, and then you can sort of search through this history of log of all of the events. So it really helps an organization like observe at a bird's eye view, like what is going on in my systems. And so that's one of the very common use cases, since you can imagine across all of the users of an application, they might generate a lot of those events or logs to really search through. It also really helps application developers root cause issues as well. Another one there is security analytics. Along the lines of understanding what's going on in my system, what if there's sort of anomalous behavior in my system as well? And maybe that anomalous behavior is normal, but sometimes it could be suspicious as well. And so OpenSearch is also used now in a lot of security analytics type situations, trying to understand from a security perspective what is going on in the system as well. And these are just some common use cases, but like I said, open source software, it always surprises me to see how people use it. This is sort of a fundamental building block in a lot of applications. It sort of stores data and provides that rich search experience. And so I'm always surprised to see new and innovative ways in which the software is used. Just so you see there on the bottom left, there's a little depiction of what a cluster is. There are different nodes in the cluster. The way you see there is 6 working together. If one of the nodes of the cluster is taken out, the cluster is actually it's fault tolerant, it's resilient, it stays up, it's available, it can still serve requests. So if you're interested in distributed systems, it's a great project, since it's a distributed system that's highly available and very highly performant. And one way, if you're familiar with like SQL, you might know writing sort of select statements. This is a system that answers queries too, but it has its own sort of syntax that you use these HTTP requests. And so if you're more familiar with the relational world, this is a sort of non-relational database that has its own format there when trying to retrieve data stored within the cluster. And then So that's a little bit about OpenSearch, sort of the back end where the data is stored. And Josh can speak a little bit more in detail about dashboards and getting insights from the data stored in the cluster.
Yeah, so Greg gave a great overview of OpenSearch, which is the document store. You can put all sorts of document there. The fact that it scales across nodes means it can handle a huge amount of data as well. But then dashboards is the way that you can visualize, examine that data, aggregate, build dashboards, build alerts. You can find the needle in the haystack when you're looking for logs or events. So I'm going to just take the screen share for just a sec, Craig, and then we'll go back to the presentation.
Do I need to stop sharing, Josh, to be able to? Okay, great.
Okay, so you should be seeing the playground. I hope.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what OpenSearch dashboards looks like. You can basically think of it as the web UI that allows you to access all of your OpenSearch data. And in fact, we're taking it even beyond that. Eventually, it will connect to other types of backend data sources beyond OpenSearch. So just to kind of give a quick preview of some of the stuff it does, it has visualization capabilities. You can combine those visualizations into dashboards. So your dashboards can have a number of visualizations. You can filter across all of your documents. You can see there's time filters here. There's also the ability to examine the raw documents and search results. So in this Discover section, we can actually look into some of these e-commerce data sets and actually use a lot of filtering to really quickly find a particular event or log or record of entry. And then also it can be used to just manage all of your backend OpenSearch indices and nodes and everything else. So it's a really powerful web UI that allows you to easily talk to OpenSearch, get things out of OpenSearch, and make it much more accessible to a bigger range of users who may not be familiar with just CLIs or writing REST requests.
All right, thank you, Josh. And the other thing I'd like to talk about with OpenSearch is the broader OpenSearch project. There are over 100 repositories in the OpenSearch project. We sort of showed you just the two sort of core OpenSearch dashboards. But OpenSearch has this extensible architecture where it's really flexible, and you can install plugins that really extend the core behavior of OpenSearch to get it to do various different things, such as observability, such as anomaly detection, such as reporting. There are a very rich ecosystem of plugins that some are there in the OpenSearch project, and some are contributed from third parties as well. But it gives us really flexible behavior to OpenSearch to get it to behave in different ways. And so there are plugins for the OpenSearch backends, the sort of node where the documents are stored. There are plugins on dashboards to that correspond to some of those backend plugins that provide a front end for interacting. Observability is a great use case to get insights into running applications. There's also the clients, and those are sort of clients on interacting with an OpenSearch cluster. Like, let's say I have an application, a Python application, and I want to write data to OpenSearch. I can use the Python client. And there are clients available in many, many different languages, some of which are listed here, Rust, Ruby, Python, and Josh, you'll have to fill in some there too. But I think there's Go, JavaScript, .NET. I'm sure
There's a PHP client.
Yeah. There are many different clients out there. I know there's a Spring Data OpenSearch too. which is built on top of Java. It's a very rich ecosystem, many different programming languages. There's the whole builds, like, we release on a schedule almost every 6 weeks, and the build team here is very active in making sure things are running efficiently and integrating all of the different components in the ecosystem, which is a fairly daunting task. And so there's a really powerful build system put into place to streamline that process. There's benchmarking. OpenSearch is a highly performant system, but we need to show that performance between some of those releases, or if you want to upgrade your cluster, you want to know how the behavior may change from one version to the next. And so there's a benchmarking platform to help measure some of those changes. And then some machine learning and semantic search. Semantic search meaning relevant search results, not just parsing through a document of text, but understanding what's in the text to give you the most relevant search results. That's just a couple of ones to highlight, but there's more that aren't touched upon in here as well. Josh, I don't know if you want to add anything about the plugins at all, or...
No, I think we should move on just so we have time at least for a couple questions at the end.
Got it. And just lastly, for those eager to begin, want to make sure we included at least some information on how you can get started. We are going to be matching you to mentors in week 2, where you can start about what should I start to tackle first. But I also want to touch upon here, if you wanted to try to do some setup on various different repositories, a good place to start is, of course, the README. Another document there on the top level, the repository, is the developer guide that shows you how to set up a repository to start developing on it. So that's always a good place to begin. On GitHub, if you navigate to a repository, the second tab to the left is called Issues. If you navigate there, you'll see filters on the top. Filter by label, you'll see a label called Good First Issue. And Good First Issue, and this is pretty standard across any open source project. These are issues that are identified as a good entry point into making your first contribution to an open source project. And so you can go read through Good First Issues. If there's not enough information, or if you're confused based on the description, make sure to ask for more information. Leave a comment, ask for more information. If you're interested in taking on one of the issues, write a comment and volunteer to take on the issue, but let the maintainer of the repo know, hey, I'm interested in working on this issue. And in the sessions on day 3, we'll talk more about the OpenSearch ecosystem to really help empower you to when filling out the survey, to figure out what repositories and mentors might match to your interests the best. And with that, I think that's what we have here. I do want to make sure we have time for Q&A. Thank you for a time check there, Josh. If you have a question, please either raise your hand. You can leave a comment in the chat. If you want to raise your hand and get on camera, ask a question.
Craig, one of the questions, can you go back to the slide of what the day 1 activities they need to complete today?
Yes.
And some people joined late and would like to know. So there's not any particular attendance for the call, but what we will be checking for is that everyone completes these day 1 goals, which is joining the Slack channel. So if you're still struggling to join that, please let us know. If we can't get it fixed before this Zoom call ends, you can just email Iskander, and we can find ways to connect with you and make sure that you get an invite that works. I will repost an invite if folks mention in the chat they're still having trouble. And then once you join the channel, introduce yourself with these 4 questions, and also read other people's introductions and get to know people who are in this program.
All right. Abhinav, I see you came on camera, raised your hand there. You have a question?
Yeah, I also have one question. So when choosing repositories, if I need some help in like understanding what's happening with the repository, is there someone I can message and ask questions for before I send my preferences in?
Yeah, the Slack account the Slack channel is actually a great place to solicit some of those questions. All of the leading mentors are there, and we'll be monitoring and responding to some of those questions. So if you wanted to learn more about let's say alerting or notifications or each different repository, that would be a good place to answer some of those questions.
Yeah, and to add to that, my plan, we just talked about this a little bit today. We're probably going to make a forum post where each repo kind of gives a high level description of why it's fun and exciting, why you might want to consider it, as well as their office hour times, because we also know that you may want to consider that when picking repositories. So that should go up, I believe, tomorrow. No, I'm sorry, that'll go up on Friday. So you'll, if not tomorrow, it should be a Friday. That will help you also guide. And again, on Slack or on that forum post, feel free to ask questions. Yeah, like anything you want to know about the repo, whether it's the tech stack or the types of issues and the experience you'll need to close those out. Those are both great places to ask.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say, like, we'll do our best to match people up, even if it's like the one thing I'll say, even if it's not first choice repo, there's a lot of really interesting stuff. And I think you'll find interesting things wherever you end up getting matched. Even as an example, I would just say, like, working with the build team is an awesome opportunity. It's a really big challenge to do releases that have to bring together contributions from like 100 different repos. So talk about like doing project work at scale. There's some fascinating challenges there. So like, I think even some of the ones that may not like initially seem like the most appealing, I think you'll get a lot of really interesting learnings out of those as well. Okay, so I'm gonna just post a couple more Slack things to help people. One is going to be an invite link. So this is a link if you're still starting to get in. Once you get into the Slack instance, you'll also want to join the OSCI 2023 channel. And so I'll post a link to that as well. Yes. Oh, and this was a question that came up several times. Thanks for asking. So all of the day 2 and day 3 sessions, they will be the same link as this one, unless Craig or Ashwin tells me I'm wrong about that. My understanding is that it's the exact same link will work for the next session.
Yes, I believe that's right, Josh.
Okay, so it should be the same link, and it's also the same time of day. So we'll do another session that is this hour for me in Pacific time. It's 6 to 7 p.m. Whatever time this session was for you, it'll be the same time tomorrow night and then the next night. There's also for those of you that joined us because you couldn't make it in the morning session, my time morning, it will also be that we'll do the day 2 and day 3 also at that earlier time. This first week, we know because people are in so many different time zones, we want to try and make times that as many people can make as possible. But going forward, once you're assigned to a mentor, those office hours will only be one time. They won't be twice a day. So that's why you also want to kind of choose a repo that the timing of the office hours will work for you to attend. And I will also, yeah, I can drop the, so as Craig mentioned, there are many different OpenSearch projects, but you can start with the pinned ones that are the core OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards that are pinned here. If you're interested to start playing around with those. In Ashwin's session tomorrow, he'll talk about just the basics of using Git, and we'll be using the OpenSearch website repository. And then on Friday, the day 3 session, you'll actually be, the workshop will be David guiding you, setting up a development environment at both OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards. I know we're a little over time, but Craig, did you see any other questions, or are there other folks that are still that I didn't see your question in the chat yet and want to ask on camera?
I'm looking through the chat now.
Oh, yeah. So developer guides are per repository. So every repository should have a README and a developer guide. So if you go to the GitHub link I added for the OpenSearch project, and then pick one of the pinned ones is probably the best place to start, starting with either core dashboards. But each repository should have both a developer guide.markdown file and a README.
Yeah, I see a question on sorry, Josh, were you finished there?
No,
Yeah.
I was, so I want to add there that some of them may not have the smaller repository may not have a developer guide, but usually because the developer guide's contents are small enough to just fit inside the README. So if you don't see developer guide, just look at the README instead.
Yeah, thank you, Ashwin. And I see a question here in the chat on would we do peer code reviews? And the answer to that is yes. Anytime there's code out there, that's actually how you familiarize yourself with different aspects of a code base. It really is, trust me. When you get a new repository that you are not oriented in and you want to know where to begin, one of those places to begin is by reviewing code. And not only that, but it really helps contribute to this knowledge building. Like engineers fill the gaps. Engineers, like we are humans, we have faults. We fill each other's gaps. Everyone's got a different perspective and they contribute that perspective. So really that collaborative way of working really helps, as Josh said earlier, really helps make the project better for everyone.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I'm glad someone asked it since we didn't cover it. But not only will you be reviewing each other's code, but yes, you will be reviewing each other's code. Feel free to also review our code or other code you see. Like part of what's awesome about open source is it's not just about writing the code, right? Like you can participate as a code reviewer, whether that's stylistically or having like other good technical ideas. That's all welcome. So also if as you're exploring repositories and you're feeling bold, feel free to look at some of the open PRs that are out there and see if you can understand what's going on and what the changes are and why they work. As Craig said, it's probably the best way to start wrapping your head around a new repository. Yeah.
I mean, oftentimes when I see a pull request for a new feature, I'll end up pulling the code and running it locally to see what it's doing myself too. And so, part of the review experience is really trying to get a deep level of understanding and putting yourself into the mind of another engineer who's working on the change.
I don't want to keep people too much later. I think we've answered all the questions. If we haven't, feel free to ask other questions in the Slack channel. That's what it's there for. Don't be shy. We're all learning together. Thank you so much for some of you that have already been answering each other's questions in the chat. Again, that is exactly what we want to see. If you know the answer because you've seen it before or you're familiar with it and you've succeeded, help other people get to that same point of success. So we can't wait to see you back for day 2. And I can't wait to meet many of you more.
Well, actually,
One last question.
Yeah. So the thing is, I kind of joined the program like last minute, and I wasn't in the email list, so I got the first email, but I don't think I got the second email.
Did you get an email with the link to this meeting?
I had to find it, but I got the first email, the acceptance one, but I didn't get the second one.
Okay. Are you in the Slack channel?
I haven't joined yet. No.
Okay.
Do you want me to?
For now, why don't you just send? You can reply to the email with Iskander, and you can also just include. You can also just send an email to me. We'll make sure that you're on, because Iskander is sending out those emails. We'll make sure that you're on the list.
So what did you want me to do?
Email
Sorry,
in the chat as well.
You want me to join the Slack and then put your email?
Well, definitely join the Slack because that's where we can answer other questions. But if you just need access on the email list, I also just added my email to the chat. Send me an email, I'll forward it to Iskander, and we'll make sure that you're on the list.
Did you? Oh, your
sorry,
email.
I think
to
I
the-
think I put it wrong. Send it to someone else. There you go. Okay.
Oh, so just email you, and then I'll be placed on the emailing list.
Yeah, yeah. Just email me. I'll forward it to Iskander, and we'll figure out make sure you're on the list.
All right, and also like, could you also, once I email it, could you also forward me the second email so like I just have a track of it?
Yeah, I'll just include that in your email to me, and I'll send it on to Iskander, and he can make sure that it gets forwarded to you.
All right. Sorry, I just have a couple more questions. It's just quick questions. Sorry. And also, so I did also, I think it's in the chat. I also joined it kind of late. What would besides like the day one activities? I heard people were talking about like a survey or something. I'm not sure if like I joined after you guys were talking about it. It's just some.
Yeah, so all of that stuff is once you're in the Slack channel, it's also all pinned in the Slack. So the survey is not due until Sunday. And you'll get a lot more info about it over the next 2 days. So it's not something you need to worry about for today. And the link to it is also pinned in the Slack channel. And as we add more things like all the repo info as well, we'll continue to like put all the key information in the pinned messages of that Slack channel. So kind of after this first week, there'll still be some key information via email, but that will also be duplicated as just pinned messages in Slack. So that's why we like the day one activities for everyone to get that channel so that we have an easy way of all kind of staying on the same page.
All right, and just one last question. Where can we find the recording and slides for this meeting?
Yeah, same thing. They'll go in Slack when they're done. It may be a day or so. We're working with our team to get the video posted as soon as possible. But it may not be till Friday. So we'll try and get it out as soon as possible. Craig may be able to share the slides tomorrow or Friday as well.
All right, just to make sure, besides the day one goals here in the survey, there's nothing else to do as of right now, right?
Make sure you follow the last step on this slide, especially to prepare yourself for the workshop tomorrow. If you already have a GitHub account and Git installed, you're set up. But if you don't, please set it up. You're going to be using Git in tomorrow's workshop. So I want to make sure that's done prior to the start of the workshop.
All right, this seems good. Thank you. And then day 2 and day 3, there's same link, same time, right? For tomorrow and day after tomorrow.
Yes.
Yep. Same link, same time.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining. I know it's a few minutes late. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes, but feel free to drop. Thank you again. I'm going to stop recording now.